hello, and welcome to episode number 424 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's packed show, a new runway opens in Ireland, KLM get grinchy, and one Boeing 737 decides to lose some weight. In the military, the Italian Armed Forces fly their new helicopter, and the A321LR puts on a grey outfit for a new mission. So joining me this week over in the PTUK Master Suite Studios this week, it's the guy who pushes all the right buttons and has beer on hand. It's Matt Smith.
Hello everyone, how are you?
I'm good, Matt. How was your trip? You've been away to sunny
Durham.
Durham.
I know. When you put it like that, it sounds like a really strange thing to do. But as I think anybody who's been following my social media will know, sorry, I was just adjusting the blind because I realised I hadn't shut it. There we go. That's better. The green screen works properly now. Hooray! Yes, it was really nice. Had a little trip on the Mid Norfolk Railway. It was lovely. The afternoon cream tea, I tell you, was absolutely fabulous. It really was.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Matt, one of the things I love, because I went on there many years ago, and the one thing that I really love was that smell, that authentic smell from the coal burning steam train.
Yes. Now, sadly, we had a bit of bad news on that front. They had to use a diesel engine because, well, as you probably know, it's been a bit warm round here, and they ran it for a wedding because we were talking to one of the guards, and they were saying that they ran it for a wedding. And the big problem that they had is they were literally having to have volunteers who were walking behind the train putting out fires as they went because of because it's a bit it's a bit warm, isn't it? Or it has been of late. So it should have been fine. But yes, a lovely week off. Other than that, really.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed myself looking after your fine feline.
Indeed, it was lovely.
She was no hassle at all, bless her. And you may notice this week we are a man down. Our seat 1A, as you can see if you're watching the YouTube stream, I am in seat 1A here in the business or the first suites here at BA. Because Nev's not with us this week, he's busy. He's had a very, very, very busy week this week, Mr. Bounds has.
Yes.
He's been filming a very, very special interview that we've got coming up soon on the show with Captain Nick, which will be soon. Well, coming soon.
Coming soon, hopefully. Yes, looking forward to that.
And he's also been meeting up with people and having meals out with Captain Al. He's been doing everying.
And also, just a quick note, obviously, because today was the funeral of the lovely Ivor, a friend of the show, and Nev very kindly agreed to go as our representative. And there's some lovely photographs and stuff that Nev has very kindly sent us. As I say, he even made the programme. Nev, look at that. It's so very, very sad, but from what Nev was saying, it was a lovely service and a very fitting service for a lovely man. So yes, our thanks to Nev for representing, as it were, and it's sort of thoughts to everyone's families, obviously, as always.
Yeah, I spoke to Nev this afternoon actually whilst he was on his way up, and he was. I'll say looking forward to it. He was, looking forward to getting to meet, obviously, the family and the friends and everyone there and having a good old discussion about Ivor. So it's very, very, it's a poignant send-off, I think he had today.
Yeah, a good send-off had by all.
Good send-off, yeah. So we have got, someone who's been missing from the team for a number of weeks now. He's back with us this week, and he's got a good excuse, to be fair. He's got a very good excuse. But he's had more happen in the last couple of weeks than I think any of us have had happen in our entire lives. It gives me great pleasure to welcome back onto the show. It is Armando.
Hey, guys. That is an understatement. It has been just slam-packed for the last 3 weeks or so between training and flying, and as we're going to talk about here in a little bit after we introduce our outstanding guest host for the evening, there was a cross-country journey in there that we'll talk about. So it's just been literally jumping from airplane to airplane to airplane, fast, slow, in the middle, trying to figure out where I am and how fast I'm supposed to be going.
Carlos, you're going to love this. Sorry to interrupt, Armando, but it's just because we got a plane flying overhead us just now, and Ben's literally just fired up the app to find out what it is. He's worse than you. I didn't think that was possible.
He's hired. He's hired. We'll keep him.
Definitely, absolutely.
Imagine what it was like for me last week when I was trying to drive a fully loaded lorry on the M25 heading towards Heathrow,
right
underneath the flight path at Heathrow,
right,
and there's me driving on him, and I'm
right, okay,
need to keep on the road,
right.
Aviation is a terrible,
it's a dangerous thing by the sound of it. You're really not selling it.
But no, Armando, we're gonna have a catch up with you in a bit. Obviously, we'll find out what you're doing. Obviously, that your new cub is home now, which is obviously good. And is Megan gonna learn to fly the cub? That's the question.
Absolutely, yeah. That was the intent of buying this airplane, and like you said, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But there is an ulterior motive there in that we have an in-house instructor, not myself, because a husband teaching a wife how to fly is probably not gonna turn out so well. But we have a young lady. Her name's Shelby. She flies for one of the regionals here in Charlotte, and so she is an airline pilot, but she actually owns her own tailwheel training company, and she uses our house as her crash pad when she's here. Because typical airline pilot, she lives in Phoenix, is based in Philadelphia, and flies out of Charlotte. So typical red Acme red, white, and blue operations there. Yeah. So they're gonna start flying here pretty soon. As soon as I think Monday, she's getting an hour in the airplane with another instructor to satisfy the insurance requirements, and after that, her and Megan will start flying.
Wow.
You'll be out of the job soon, Armando.
That's fine. I will just watch from afar and watch the beauty that is, as we're going to talk about with Ben, but watch the beauty that is somebody learn how to fly and really get into it. And when the concepts start really, solidifying in there, it's pretty cool to watch that.
So we have got a very special guest joining us on the show this week. We had him on many years ago.
Can you remember how long ago it was?
It was
You're making me feel old.
Yeah, it was a long while ago. We had our guest on before, and we've managed to grab him and bring him back on because he's had quite the eventful last kind of year. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome back onto the show. It's Ben Rourke.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be back. I think it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was in 2017, 2018.
Oh wow!
Like that. So yeah, it was at least 4 years ago. So no, it's been a few years since.
And a fun journey by the sound of it.
Well, yeah. When you say it like that, it makes you realise how long it's all taken, and the money as well. But
we're gonna talk about that later, Ben, because obviously we've got a lot to discuss with you because so much has changed with you over the last few years, and obviously you've reached quite a few big milestones in your aviation and piloting career. So we're going to talk about that later on the show. But welcome back anyway, Ben. It's great to have you back on with us. On the show, but stay tuned for our talk with Ben later on in the show. So we're going to say a big welcome to all our chat room family in the show this week, but first we've got a weekly roundup, and Armando, you've got a few bits to talk about on here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, better than me talking about it, Matt, if you're ready, go ahead and play that video.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Here we are at 3,500 feet, just over somewhere east of Houston, Texas. This has been quite the adventure. It's always fun buying an airplane. It's a bit like buying a house. But over the last couple weeks, as we've been talking about over the show, I've been looking at this Piper Super Cruiser. We call it a Super Cup. It's a Super Cruiser. It's a 3-place airplane. You can see there's a pilot up front. There's actually enough room for 2 ground adults in the back. But it's been a fun adventure. Dealing with the seller and getting the pre-buy inspection.
A little bit of light, but if you want to try 28.
Getting everything done in preparation for the cross-country trip home. Spent a nice day and afternoon there in Houston, Texas, getting the airplane ready with the seller. Awesome dude. He bent over backwards to make sure that this airplane was ready to go and safe, and we were even doing some tinkering with his mechanic, his local A&P, late into the hours last night, trying to get the airplane ready to go. But here we are, 3,500 feet, like I said. It's going to be about a 10-hour flight home from Texas back to Charlotte, North Carolina. And yeah, it's awesome. I'll show you guys some views along the way, and we will check in as the flight goes along. See ya. All right, friends, hello. We, in just a few hours, have made it all the way to Atlanta. So I'm just outside of Peachtree City and going through the south side of Atlanta on our way back to Charlotte. We managed to get a couple hundred miles in today. I think I'm going to go as far as Greenville, South Carolina, to make sure that I'm not flying into the night, since it's been a while since I've flown a tail wheel into the night. Plane's been flying great. Amazing. I have a little squawk list. You know, over the course of 8 hours, you get to know an airplane pretty good, and I've got about 7 items here that I think I want to get addressed fairly quickly. But otherwise, awesome little airplane. It's got a O235 Lycoming in it, same engine as a Cessna 150. And in this airplane, we're getting right at 100 miles per hour. I've had tailwinds pretty much the whole way, so I've been averaging about 115, 120 going this direction, which I can't complain about that at all. But overall, super happy with it. And this trip is going a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be going. I've been fighting weather the whole way, but ATC, as usual, is just awesome in the way that they help you. And I'll show you guys a little bit later, but I've got what's called a level aviation bomb. It is a bomb, broadcast outer module, BOM, and that gives me an attitude heading reference systems as well as indicated airspeed and a barometric altitude in my iPad, as opposed to like a Stratus or something like that. And then on the other side of the screen I have ForeFlight as usual with all my navigation. But this is a VFR only flight, and that one device pretty much makes it so I have essentially a glass cockpit inside the airplane. This is a 1946 airplane, like I said, and inside you'll see it's got the standard 6-pack, just arranged a little bit differently, but having that kind of digital situational awareness is just amazing nowadays, and I was able to pick my way through some pretty serious storms. But all in all, super happy with it. We're going to finish up day one here in Greenville in just about another hour and 28 minutes. And day two, well, the weather's not looking great tomorrow, so we may have to actually leave the airplane in Greenville for a couple days. But day two is to come. Talk to you guys later.
I mean, Armando, that's just so I love the champagne when you got there. That's just so lovely. And that is, now you sent me that picture, the picture that's on the screen at the moment. How would you describe it? It's as I say, it's
got wings.
Yeah, it's got wings.
White and red, and looks like a big Tylenol.
Yeah. And you're all sat in there, and it's an absolutely beautiful photograph of people who've just got their lovely. I love that the champagne at the end there, a really lovely touch.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that was the best part of the flight. It was, so I did the first day was 9.5 hours with the command center, which is Carlos and his dad tracking me all the way from England. These guys, and we'll talk about the weather here in a second, but I flew kind of into sunset. I was comfortable. You know, the last time I flew a tail dragger at night, it was a DC-3, which is a pretty big difference between this and that. And so I decided to just stop for the night, even though I was only about 45 minutes from home, and really just finished out. But the best part of the flight was when I landed at our home airfield, which is just a 3,500-foot grass strip. Perfect. There's a bunch of Cubs there. I think there's 8 Piper Cubs, the Super Cruiser, a bunch of Cessna 140, Cessna 145, 195. So it's all tail draggers. Really old school community. Megan, Maddie, and Shelby, our roomie, were all there with bottles of champagne waiting, and that was quite the welcome home, which was much appreciated after Really. I mean, I was planning on not even staying at hotels. This was such almost a backcountry trip in that I had a hammock with me with a sleeping bag and a pillow, and was planning on just flying till I got tired, picking an airport and just hanging up a hammock inside of a hangar somewhere, sleeping there for the night, and then carrying on the next morning. But so might as well talk about the weather. Ben was asking, it's the Southeast in the summer. It is just terrible storms every day. This particular day was, so there's some horrible flooding going on right now in the Southeast United States. I mean, some world record or some historical records are being broken. There's lots of people that are in danger down there right now. And I was on the leading edge of that storm. Some of these places were getting a foot of rain per day, just in the days that after I flew through there. So it was a little bit challenging. One thing that was interesting was flying at 1,000 feet AGL, sometimes 800 feet over the trees, over unpopulated areas. You can see where the rain showers are. So despite having ADSB in and having NextRad weather and that kind of stuff, you can literally just look outside. You don't really need the automation because you're so low to the ground that you're pretty much under, as long as it's VFR or marginal VFR, you can stay underneath all of the cloud layers and just kind of look ahead, and you can pick your way through. Probably the most surprising part was how smooth it was on the leading edge of these storms. It really wasn't bad at all, and it was smooth, and it was kind of fun just to fly with the window open and the door open for 9 hours. Helped keep you awake and keep you alert, and always thinking, if the engine goes out, where am I going to put it down? But with a Cub, you only need about 500 feet of a field or a road or anything like that, and you can really, the safety part of it was foremost in my mind, and having the confidence that you can put down the airplane anywhere, and Ben, I'm sure we'll talk to you later about these kind of lessons that you're learning now. You're always playing the what if game, and especially with a new airplane, you're definitely playing the what if game. So as you're getting to know it.
Oh yeah.
Crazy, isn't it? Now, while despite all of that going on, it's safe to say you bumped into an old friend while you were on your travels as well.
Yeah, so that was I got the airplane home on Monday, and right on Tuesday again, I had to turn around. I had a charter trip in the Pilatus. So talk about timing. Wow. So I had a charter trip. I took Shelby with me. My regular FO called out sick. So I asked the company, I was like, hey, I've got an ATP rated pilot that lives with me. Can I just bring her along? And they said, yeah, absolutely. So she sat right seat for me, did a great job. Probably, more qualified than I am to be in that seat. But we went down to Atlanta, met up with Captain Jeff. He took us to the Sweetwater Brewing Company, which is a huge brewery, or actually a brewing company, but the brewery was pretty big, and the food was great. And we just, hung out for a couple hours there while, telling war stories and talking about everything from airline careers to low and slow. Shelby also does aerobatics. Her dad owns a Stearman. She owns a decathlon herself, and we're actually trying to convince Jeff a post-retirement to come into the GA world and maybe even buy an airplane or start flying with us or something like that.
Wow. I don't think you'll succeed somehow. I've got a feeling that when Jeff is done, I think that'll be it. He won't be doing anything else.
We're gonna have to teach him what the blue knob does and what the red knob does. And all he knows is throttle full max. And
without further ado, let's move on to this week's commercial news. So if all the team's ready,
let's go.
Let's go.
Captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
So the first commercial news story this week comes to us from RTE.ie News, and a new €320 million runway opens at Dublin Airport with Ryanair flight. So the first commercial flight to use the new northerly runway, 10 left or 28 right at Dublin Airport, is taken off. Forgive the pun. At Ryanair, flight FR 1964 to Eindhoven pushed back from its stand just before midday this week and left the runway at around 12:10 p.m. after it was cleared for takeoff by air traffic controller God, you always get these names, don't you? I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. It begins with N anyway, and her surname's Hennessy. The runway has been delivered on time, they said, within the €320 million budget paid for by the airport operator DAA's own revenues and borrowings. The project included the building and installation of over 300 square metres of new runway and taxiways and 6 kilometres of new internal airport roads, 7.5 kilometres of electrical cable, and more than 2,000 new runway and taxiway lights. It will be capable of servicing larger long-haul aircraft, including the 747-8 and the Airbus A380. So it's good to have a new runway. I didn't realise they actually needed a new runway at Dublin, but obviously they must have done.
Absolutely jam-packed when I was there. I was there last week for a few weeks, and you know, you've always got five.
Yeah,
five
you were saying you saw this like coming out of the going out for first run.
Oh yeah. So every morning going back to the training place where they do the sim stuff, you go past the runway there, and you can see they really do need that, especially in the summer. So yeah, it's good to see it open.
Next on Ryanair, new runway at Dub usage fee. Right, yes, true.
That'll be the next. They've got to try and recover their costs somehow.
Indeed, absolutely. That's going to be the only way they know how to do it, I suspect.
Well, it's safe to say Ryanair have got the aircraft to utilise this now. They've got so many new aircraft being delivered and stuff. So,
yeah, they have. Yeah, definitely.
It's good news. But it's interesting that they've tailored it for being able to support the Dash 8 and the A380 as well, which is always a good idea.
Absolutely.
And producer John mentioned that the runway was envisioned back in the 60s and got planning permission 15 years ago. So I don't know, in the UK, is that, I guess in Dublin, is that...
Oh no, that's quite quick.
Average time?
Yeah, no,
that's
quite quick actually. 15 years. Yeah. For some any form of infrastructure project, that's pretty quick. I don't know in Dublin. I don't know whether it's a slightly different time scale. Perhaps. I mean, I think that's quite quick, personally. But
well, I guess in the history of the British Isles, 15 years is nothing. No?
Yes, quite absolutely.
Well, it's probably going to take them that long to fit the central barriers along the A14. But anyway, moving on to the next story.
He went there. Yeah.
Highways Agency. Highways, more like highwaymen.
Okay, yeah.
Robbing people. Anyway, Matt, taking the next story.
Indeed.
And it's bad news for pilots of a certain Dutch airline.
Okay, yes, indeed. So KLM no longer giving pilots free flights to work. So this is the NLT Times in the Netherlands and NOS.nl as well. KLM pilots who live abroad will no longer be able to fly to work at Schiphol Airport for free. Instead, they'll need to pay a fixed amount for commuting every month. NOS reports it's based on the provisional collective labour agreement between KLM and trade union VNV. Just under 3% of KLM staff currently use the free flights to work, the free flights to work scheme. An independent state advisor previously criticised the regulation, saying that it encourages tax avoidance. KLM pilots who live in Spain or Ireland, for example, pay relatively little income tax, partly because they can travel to work at Schiphol for free, according to NOS. According to KLM, such compensation is quite common in aviation because it is a very international industry and airlines often recruit from abroad. The preliminary collective bargaining agreement also gives pilots a 4% pay increase, as was previously agreed for ground staff. They'll receive the increase in 2% increments. Now, I don't know. I thought one of the Armando, you're probably the best one to answer this one going forward. But I mean, I thought that was one of the big perks, was the sort of like the free travel and being able to sort of go from A to B, if you like, on what are they, like jump seat privileges and things like that.
I vehemently disagree with this policy. This sets a in my opinion, right? We always caveat that this is my opinion only. This is, there's 8,700 pilots at KLM, and the number of people, so 3% of that is minuscule, and it is a perk. It is one of the benefits of being a cabin crew or flight crew, is the ability to get out of your home airport, because a lot of times you're commuting, the company asks you to be there, and I get that KLM has a limited number of bases, so it's almost expected that you're going to live in base or near base. But it's also over there in the EU, you could have people commuting in from anywhere, and having to pay to commute to work to fly is I couldn't disagree with that policy more. It's such a minuscule, and in all the times that I've ever commuted when I worked at the airline, I never thought, oh, I'm doing this to get away from paying my taxes.
Right.
That thought never crossed my mind. I can't imagine it crosses anybody's mind. It is a benefit of being an employee of the company, being able to commute on the company and use the company aircraft for non-revenue flights. But even then, you're going through so many hoops just trying to find a seat. It's not easy, because you understand, and the company understands, that revenue is the number one purpose of the company. Yeah. So you're literally already just begging to get a seat, and you're checking the loads. You're checking with your ground crew amigos to see if there's even a seat available for you to get from A to B. So having a flat fee commuting thing, I don't know how much it is, but I couldn't disagree with this more.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because all those who don't have a flight or require a flight to get from, who live in the country, if you like, I suppose they're the ones almost missing out on a perk, if you see what I mean. Because, I mean, obviously commuting to work, presumably that's a different arrangement to the jump seat privileges that I was referring to a moment ago, obviously, where you can, jump on a flight and go to somewhere else. But is there an argument where, if these people are able to commute to, I know they've got to go to the airport, but once they get to the airport, the flight into Schiphol, as an example, is not costing them anything further? Is that not unfair on those who are perhaps living at, say, who are driving, if you like, to go to work from a certain point? I mean, is that the argument here?
I don't know. I disagree.
Yeah.
That is a viewpoint. But even if it's not a commuting for work thing, it is a perk of working for an airline to be able to, here in the United States, is go through. So you can't really use known crew member KCM, but you can go through TSA pre-check as a crew member. You can catch a non-rev flight on vacation, and it's that is a benefit and a recruiting tool for the companies.
Well, I think around the world that's quite common, isn't it? If you are either a pilot or cabin crew, that you have the benefit of those perks, if you see what I mean, to be able to. All right, you might not necessarily get to fly on the day that you wanted to, so you've got to make sure that your plans are quite flexible. But yeah, the sort of like the crew ticket, if you like, is sort of quite common. But so I don't know. A disagreement. This is exciting. Anyway, before we fall out, Armando,
sticking with you, Armando, for this next one, and a little a bit of software for pilots.
Oh boy, I actually disagree with this story also. So from AIN Online, UK software developer Signal has saved Virgin Atlantic Airways some 1,000 tons of fuel over a 6-month period with the help of a proprietary app designed to, air quotes, nudge airline captains into flying more efficiently, according to that London-based startup. The behavioral economics and data science app adopted by Virgin Atlantic last December gives pilots individual feedback on their operational tendencies to encourage them to reduce fuel usage while complying with fuel management and flight safety standards. This 3-year deal between Virgin Atlantic and Signal follows the success of an initial pilot study in which pilots reduced CO2 emissions by 24,000 tons over an 8-month period, resulting in $6.1 million in savings. Today, about 200 pilots, or approximately 2/3 of Virgin Atlantic captains, voluntarily participate in the program, according to the Signal Chief Commercial Officer, Gavin Laidlaw. Using the app's pilots can view their performance data from each individual flight and access their historical records. The app then calculates and illustrates the environmental benefits of a pilot's particular flying behaviors. So as the flight data gets loaded, they can see how they're doing, and they can see how much carbon they're saving in a relatable way, like you've saved 10,000 trees or that kind of thing, says the spokesperson. So one of the key things they say here is that Signal is that we don't tell you what to do. Captains value their independence and freedom of action, and telling them what to do gets resented, like I am thinking. So nudging them is a much more gentle and friendly way of doing them. Okay, let me tell you a little about nudging. Right. I am not a fan. I understand that companies need to make money. And in this case, there's an environmental advantage to this. I am not a fan of metrics driving operations. As flight crew, we've already got enough on our minds to conduct a safe operation, a safe mission from takeoff to landing, really from gate to gate. And the more things that you have affecting your decision matrix, your decision-making loop that's going on in your mind. So now we've got this other thing, and I can almost guarantee that at some point, this right here is going to turn into some kind of financial bonus scheme or something like that. And I despise bonuses. I despise on-time bonuses. I despise quick turn bonuses, fuel savings bonuses, anything that that affects the decision-making matrix of a flight crew. It just takes away from, I believe, from the safety and the successful execution of that aircraft.
So now interestingly enough, John Jester is saying we're getting a same type program next week.
Yeah, I would be interested. John is much more qualified. I burn about a thimble full of fuel compared to John's 747, right? So, and I think John and I, we grew up together. We probably think alike. We understand the imperative to take care of the environment, but these kinds of metrics that continue to just be to pressure the crews into into how to execute a flight. It's just too many things that are already going in.
But also it's an extra layer of hassle or stress or whatever that you don't need almost. I mean, you've got enough on your plate as it is.
Yeah, that's what dispatch is for. Dispatch has, an economy formula for that flight. They know that the most economical fuel burn for that flight will be, Mach 0.73 or this specific type of or setting for the fuel flow. And they even give you a couple options. They say, hey, if you go up 1,000 feet, you'll save this much fuel, this much time. If you go up 2,000 feet, based on winds that were calculated for you right before you took off or even during the flight, that's what dispatch is for. So make it a dispatch function saying, hey, we recommend you fly at 36 instead of 34.
Right.
We recommend this. We recommend this speed setting. But now you have to balance that with air traffic control, especially airports like Schiphol or Heathrow. You've got a slot time to make. So what happens, in my view, is now these things turn into financial bonuses. Now, well, what happens to the people that are just trying to maintain on-time operations? And I've got this I've got the slot time to meet. So now maybe I got to push it up a little bit. So does that mean that I get penalized as a pilot because I used higher than average fuel burn for that sector?
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to meet a time slot, so my 380 passengers in the back don't get mad at me, or am I gonna throttle back? And then I understand the environmental impact, right? But make it a dispatch function, not a pilot function. What do you guys think?
So there's some further information that John's very kindly put in the notes for us here, saying, using data collected from the airplane's flight data recorder, the app addresses several operational behaviours, perhaps the most fuel burn intensive involving landing and takeoff. For example, Laidlaw noted that pilots often use thrust reversers more often than necessary at airports with long runways. Taxiing on one engine also saves a significant amount of fuel, but pilots simply don't always adhere to that practice. While in-flight savings might seem less significant due to the precision with the pilots typically fly their planned routes, the simple act of using the most fuel-efficient flap settings on approach can make a big difference, he explained. Prior to takeoff, the amount of discretionary fuel a captain chooses to carry often varies with his or her comfort level and risk tolerance. Of course, taking on less fuel results in less weight and therefore better fuel economy. The app will show, for example, how much unnecessary fuel after reserves for potential diversions a user took on board for each flight. It can then calculate how much savings he or she might have realised by loading less. I mean, this just seems, forgive me, this just seems really patronising.
Let's not forget as well that the story, we haven't included it in this week's show, but remember, guys, we were talking about it in our group chat earlier this week. There was the story that broke, I think it was United 737, Armando, that had taxied for so long. It just ran out of enough fuel to get to its destination, had to go back to the gate, and they cancelled the flight.
Yeah, and I chuckled at that because that literally happens all the time. You get weather delays that, we're already packing so many things where you're at minimum fuel for the flight. So this happened to us coming back from LA last week, where we had a reroute out of LA to Charlotte direct flight. There was weather over Nevada somewhere, so we had to wait for a little bit of a ATC delay. In that time, we didn't have enough fuel to complete the flight safely, so we had to taxi back to the gate. So this happens like all the time. But I will, because I love a good discussion. John Jester is going to disagree with me on this one, in that the commercial aviation is all about metrics. It's metric driven, and in their operation, which John works for a pretty large operation with large aircraft. They look at everything down to permits to cross countries. All the dispatch info is on metrics from previous flights. And I get that. Like that is a success formula to any business, whether you're selling perfumes, soaps, running cargo down the A14 or flying an operation. I understand that metrics drives all of this. My issue is with the incentives and the make it a sim thing. Make it a company policy. Hey, do this when available. Just tell everybody, taxi on one engine. If you're in a twin engine airplane, if you're using flap settings. But again, I don't like people telling me what flap settings I need to use. I don't like money telling me what flap settings. But I don't fly a 737. I don't fly a 787 or all that stuff. So.
Indeed. Right.
My owners, we waste as much gas. We might as well just club baby seals as we're going down the highway. Take a quart of oil and I just dump it down the sewer drain that says flows to river.
Indeed. Right. We should move on before.
Is that while you drop the cubes of blue ice?
Yeah.
From the aircraft. Yeah.
I collect them and then I just throw at them. Throw them at people from the car.
Very good.
Anyway, moving on to the next story. This one comes to us from our Herald Aviation Source News. got blue water on my mind now. This is regarding Alaska Airlines Boeing 737-900 that decided to lose some parts this week.
As you do.
As you do. Well, it's obviously weight saving.
Well, of course, absolutely. They've obviously got the memo, haven't they? That's what it is.
So in Alaska Air, Boeing 737-900 registration November 293 Alpha Kilo, performing flight AS558 from Seattle to San Diego with 176 passengers and 6 crews, climbing out of Seattle's runway 16 left when the crew felt an unusual vibration from the left-hand side of the aircraft. I bet they did. And stopped the climb at around 12,500 feet, then decided to return to Seattle. The crew declared an emergency and landed the aircraft on runway 16 left around 30 minutes after departure. Upon touchdown, the left-hand engine, the CFM56 outboard cowl, partially separated, and the inboard cowl subsequently opened and separated as well. The airline reported part of the engine cowling, blimey, had detached during a flight landing back at Seattle. And there's obviously, with these kind of stories, you get the normal 400,000 social media videos taken on Twitter, and Matt just showed the video there. And I have to admit, if you were sitting in that seat there,
I might be a bit nervous, I've got to be honest.
That's quite...
I mean, I assume they aborted their takeoff, did they?
Well, yeah, they returned for a safe landing, thank God. But
so they completed the takeoff then?
There are so many things that could have gone wrong there with those pieces flying off.
Well,
Armando, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to turn this one over to Ben. Ben, what would you do?
Ben.
What airplane do you fly? You fly a Piper mostly?
You're putting me on the spot now. The last aeroplane, is a Piper Arrow.
Yeah.
And the
So what would you? So that's
well.
it's got a cowling up front, right? Little flap that pops up if you don't latch to 2 latches, right?
Happens
What would you
quite a
do?
lot. Well, it's actually a good point because it's something that we looked at before we started the training, and there's a good video online actually of, I think it's open just on takeoff, and he decides to land it back, and they actually overrun the runway. You've probably seen it by the looks of it.
Yep.
But it's one of those discussion points when you're going through the takeoff briefing, and this is in the later stages in the 737 sim. You say after V1 you'll only stop for these reasons, and they're very set in stone that it will only be engine failure, engine fire,
right,
or anything that's going to affect the safety of flight. And you could argue that that's not going to affect the safety of flight to a degree that a rejected takeoff would, or as we saw, the overrun. So
I suppose at that point you're quite far down the runway, I guess, aren't you, as well? So I suppose if you do abort at that point, there's no guarantee that you're going to remain on tarmac, for example, and so you could end up, I suppose, bedding into the whatever's around it, or goodness, God forbid, like crash barriers or a main road or anything, I guess. So I suppose as long as there appears to have been no obvious, I suppose there is the chances, like I think Carlos was alluding to there, is like could perhaps it have been struck the wing or the side of the aircraft or something like that.
Yeah, you've got the elevators and stuff. It could have hit the rudder. It could have hit. There's a lot. A piece even could have flown back and hit the actual fuselage itself, or a window. I mean, I know the aircraft wasn't at any great height, obviously, so it wouldn't have been quite well. It's still bad anyway, but it wouldn't have been quite as bad as if it was at like 35,000 feet. But it still could have done some damage. Luckily, I mean, as the video show, I think most of the pieces probably kind of went down rather than or flew down rather than hit anything. But I think this is a case of one of those things that you say, Armando, when you go around and do your walk around checks, is to make sure all the latches,
everything's all latched down,
cowl latchings are all pushed down properly.
So is it something as simple as that then, basically, that it hadn't been shut properly?
I did see online there's quite a few people saying this is why walk-around checks are so important.
Right, okay.
Obviously, they don't know the full details. There might be something that suggested that, but if you're doing the walk-around,
even, I suppose,
you might not see it. So it's hard to say. But
nasty.
I think, that
could have been very, very nasty. Anyway,
Yeah, I've just done a quick check.
Yeah.
And on the site, and there are at the moment there's no updates to that story
okay.
on there. So yeah, as yet.
Right, we'll move on to the next. And
yeah, next story, Matt. You've got well, it's a new airport. Woohoo!
I know, very London Manston, right? Okay. Right. London to get new airport as Manston is cleared for takeoff is the headline. bmmagazine.co.uk, newcivilengineer.com and flyer.co.uk. Those are the sources for this particular story. The UK's Department of Transport has given the green light for a £500 million development of a passenger and freight aviation hub that will join Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton and City and Southend as well, being named as a London airport. The decision came despite opposition from the government's key advisor. The Planning Inspectorate had concluded that the project failed to demonstrate sufficient need, additional to or different from the need which is met by the provision of existing airports. It highlighted issues ranging from environmental, carbon emissions and noise to operational impacts on the local community and road network. The airport will reopen primarily as a freighter airport with some passenger services and a capacity of at least 12,000 air cargo movements per year. Surveys, detailed master planning and design work will start in the next few weeks. Construction will begin later next year, with the airport operating its first cargo services in early 2025.
Now, I've done a little bit of investigating here, and can I just share this with you? Right, I'm going to share this screen. Don't panic. It's family friendly.
Oh dear.
Right, so here's London. This is London, okay, and up here is obviously where me and Matt live, in the middle of nowhere.
Or for everyone else, the whole part of that is London.
This is where me and Matt are here.
Yeah.
Now, Manston Airport is here. That is Manston International Airport. That's London. That's Manston. Now,
I mean, if you're saying that it's near,
you can see where I'm going with this.
But it's not near. But Norwich is further away than Manston. To be fair, I think that's.
Can you not see? If you were to say, can we travel from here, Norwich, to Manston? That's not really just round the corner.
No, true.
That's why you need a Piper Cub.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Otherwise, it's a 4.5 hour drive.
Yeah. No, indeed. So further information that John has given on this, by the way, is that it's a former Dam Busters test site, which I think is quite cool. Test flights and crew training for BA's A380s and Boeing 787s took place there as well. It was previously named Kent International Airport from 1989. It closed on the 15th of May 2014. Operation Stack, Operation Brock Lorry Overflow it was also used for during that word that we don't like to say on this show. So yeah, busy old time. Was it London Calais? Oh dear, that's all getting a bit. Yeah, no, closing the book on that one. I think we should move on before we end up in lots of hot water.
Can we just have an airport that's in London? Gatwick, Stansted, Luton, Heathrow. Yeah, we can say they're London.
Gatwick.
Gatwick and Luton. I'm not so sure personally, but yeah. I mean, it's close to London in the fact that you've got the A1M that goes like between London and Luton. But but we've had that conversation many a time before. Shall we move?
But just before we move on, it's good that it's going to be safe, because far too many airports are getting swallowed up by housing and other stuff.
True,
so it's good
indeed.
news.
Do you think they'll still allow like GA flights and stuff into there? Do you think?
I would imagine so.
Because I know you can't in some of the. I know you can't at Heathrow.
Oh no. Well, you wouldn't want to pay the fees anyway. I think people say going down to Lyd down there is probably the most depressing flight you'll ever do. So I don't think it's. There's some nice strips around there though. Kent's actually quite famous for farm strip flying. So I think there's a few training places that are looking to be based back there. I think TG Aviation were there before, so it might be home to a new flying school again, which would be good.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Yeah.
Armando, you've got the next story, and it's all about giant airport screens.
Okay, this one's from Minority Report. Oh no, I'm just kidding. It's from WashingtonPost.com. Detroit Metro Airport. Thousands of passengers a week are finding their way to gate using a technology that looks something out of a futuristic sci-fi movie. Delta Airlines, always on the cutting edge of technology, introduced a parallel reality system that lets travelers access individual flight information on a shared overhead screen based on a scan of their boarding pass or their face. The twist is that 100 people can do this at a time, all using the same digital screen. And I think Matt's got a picture that he's going to throw up there, but only seeing their own personal details. Unlike a regular TV or a video wall, each pixel emits the same color of light in every direction. The board sends different colors of light in different directions. In Detroit, an overhead motion sensor that tracks objects, moving objects anonymously, quote, follows passengers after they scan their boarding pass or their face to know where to direct flight information, according to a spokesperson. Travelers need to opt in to Delta's facial recognition technology to use the face scan. So that was pretty cool, huh? That's a giant board, and I would love to see this in person and see if it actually, like I bought one of those privacy screens for my iPad, and I'm kind of curious if that's the way it works. Like it just
I see, yeah,
the light
deflects the light,
yeah, towards you and where it is that you scan your boarding pass. I imagine there's probably a bunch of little kiosks and it just directs the light towards you. I don't know, pretty cool. I mean that's kind of fun to get personalized Alexa. That's for all our listeners. That's for all our listeners.
no.
Personalized directions from who, as you're walking through the terminal.
I love the picture there where it does say, it says, "Hello, Liz. Thanks for being a diamond medallion."
That's weird.
Oh, how nice! How
It's
nice.
a bit scary. I don't know if I like that.
I think we should get them to put the PTUK logo up on there. Just
right. Yeah.
For a cool $7 million.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Right. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure a certain someone who's good at tech stuff could hack their system.
That's not a word I want to hear around an airport. Thank you. Moving on.
Anyway,
I think this is funny because when I did work for an airline and I wore the uniform, the costume, going through airports, that's probably the thing that I did the most, is answer people's questions as to where the bathrooms are, where baggage claim is, where gate E14 is. And most of the time, it wasn't my home airport. I was Atlanta based at the time. So I'd be in Detroit or Pittsburgh, and somebody comes up to me just because I had a badge and a uniform, and they'd be like, "Hey, where is gate A21?" And all you do is say, "Well, I would look up at the signs there if I were you, and probably follow those because I'm not from here either." So nice to have a little assist from some technology. Way to go, Delta.
Absolutely. Indeed.
I'll remember that for next time I get stuck. Next story has come to us from BBC.com, and this is great. This is a headline: is British Belgian pilot who's only 17 becomes the youngest to fly around the world solo. We've got another one. We're going to get to the stage where there'll be a 3-year-old toddler flying a 150. This teenage pilot has become the youngest person to fly solo around the world in a small aircraft. Mac Rutherford, who's 17 and 64 days, that's the important part, landed at Sofia in Bulgaria after a 5-month journey. Rutherford's route spanned 52 countries across 5 continents on a specially prepared ultralight Shark aircraft with cruising speeds reaching 300 kilometers per hour, according to his website. His elder sister Zara is the youngest woman to fly solo around the world, and she completed her own journey in January this year and disclosed that she had given him advice on the route. As she traveled to Sofia to meet Mac, as he returned to the starting point of his trip. The previous record holder for flying solo was British pilot Travis Ludlow. I think we've had Travis on the show, didn't we?
We did, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
we did.
Who was 18 and 150 days old when he completed his journey.
He's just he's starting a new chapter, actually, hasn't he?
Yes,
he's just gone off to. I think I saw on his socials that he's gone off to uni himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, he sold all his gear. He was selling all his flight gear actually online. But 17 years old. I mean, that is
wow.
the question is, will this young British Belgian pilot who's 17, will he now go from this and go for the whole hog and go for his commercial license? And
I would imagine so.
Yeah,
I would imagine so.
I think you'd have to.
And that as I say, it's a very. I'm trying to see how it. I was trying to get it to work, but there's a very, very cool little. There's a cool. I can't get it to work on my machine for some reason, but you were able to track the route of his flight, and it's not working on my computer for some reason, but which is a real shame. But if you take yourself to maxsolo.com/journey, you can see what I was referring to there. It was a really cool little tracker that just sort of shows the route that he took flying around the world. Please fly my toddler to Greenland. Right. Okay. Very good.
I mean,
somebody's having a tough afternoon, but
10 years time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Poppy, do you want to go and fly a plane?
He's talking to his cat. I can't believe he's actually talking to his cat.
Well, no, that would be a world record, wouldn't it?
It would absolutely
to ever fly solo.
Around. Yeah, absolutely, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it for the commercial news, as we've got our guest Ben on the show this week. And obviously Ben has had a lot happen in his life to do with aviation since we last had him on the show 10 million episodes ago. But
something like that, yeah.
But yeah, so Ben, welcome on again to the show. Thanks for joining us this evening and stuff. It's great to have you back on. So Ben, what has changed significantly since you were last with us on the show?
So I'm probably about £50,000 less for it.
Okay, that's
no,
given. Yeah.
No, I don't like to go on about the money side too much, because that's what
totally
overrides.
Put people off.
That's what overrides the conversation all the time. So it gets to the point where it should be about the enjoyment rather than the money. Obviously, it's an important part, but. So I think it was 4 years ago I was here. I just got my PPL, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And over the last 6 months, I guess it's been, I've been training up in Scotland and in Ireland to get the commercial pilot's licence. So started off with the multi-engine rating on the DA42, and then the multi-engine instrument rating. So you're flying up in the airways and things like that, doing instrument approaches. And then to finish off, which feels a bit backwards, for me it did, and for other people, to then go into a single engine, back into the Piper Arrow, to do the CPL, commercial pilot's licence, and that completes your training for that.
Wow.
And then an upset recovery course, which is 3 hours getting chucked around in an extra to learn how to recover from upsets in the air. And then to finish off a 40-hour course in the 737 simulator to do multi-crew and jet orientation. And then that gets you your what's known as a frozen ATPL. So you've got everything that you need to apply for the airlines. So
wow.
Yeah.
So you could essentially, now you've done this, Ben, you can now approach approach people like Ryanair or Jet2 and potentially put yourself forward.
Yeah, that's it. I've applied for a few roles already with a few smaller operators. Jet2 do a really good scheme. I think he might be coming on here again soon, Jake.
Jake. I've got Jake coming on.
Yeah, Jake. He's fantastic. He was started at a similar time to me at Beccles flying school, and he flies for Jet2 now and followed a similar path. But you can apply for Jet2, do a great apprenticeship scheme, which Jake followed. Ryanair, obviously got all the other operators as well. Loganair are a really good recruiter of low-hour pilots as well. Eastern, and lots of different opportunities, especially at the moment. It's been quite tough over the last couple of years, so we've come into a time now where it's actually quite nice to come out of flight training and have the options to go ahead and get a first job.
So what was the what is the type rating that you've now got?
So I haven't got a type rating yet.
Yep.
So I did 40 hours on the 737 sim.
Yep.
And that gets you your multi-crew.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's how to cooperate with other crew, because obviously you've done everything on your own. Everything's your decision.
Independent.
And now suddenly you've got
to
cooperate with someone you probably never met before.
Right.
Which is quite a challenge,
And I suppose it make sure you're all singing from the same song sheet.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to have this shared mental model, was the posh word they call it. So it's quite important, but it's good fun. And if you get on well with the other guy, then it really helps. You make some better decisions based on having two minds rather than one. So.
Indeed. So just remind me, sort of, obviously, so how the journey started, obviously, because it was a long time ago since you were on, because you very kindly sent me over some pictures to include. So just talk me through the journey so far.
Yeah, you can flick through those. It starts a little bit cheesy, actually, but I thought for the benefit of the viewers, it'd be quite good just to skip through some pictures to show the journey and what it's like for anyone wanting to get into aviation. I think the path that gets talked a lot about is the journey where it costs £100,000 and you've got to have rich parents and you've got to have remortgage your house and things like that. And throughout the training, I've met people that have had that, and I take nothing away from them. They've worked very hard, but obviously the funding side is important, and so it'd be good to show that it's possible without that.
So now I feel I recognise this particular aircraft. Is this?
Yeah. So you know where that is?
I want to say Duxford.
Yep, that's it.
That's the Concorde,
It is the Concorde,
do you know the only reason I recognise it? Not for the reasons I probably should, being on this show, but it's the beautiful cable management that myself and Nev admire constantly.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to say the beautiful chap standing.
No. It's all about the cable management. So that was at Duxford, is it? And so, I mean, is that had you already got the bug by that point? Is that why you were at Duxford? Or?
Yeah, I included that because I thought it's always nice to show where the passion started from. And I actually compared flying, the pilot journey to radio, which is quite important for you two guys, obviously. And a lot of the guys that get into radio start off in hospital radio and they work their way up. Greg James, Scott Mills, all these people.
He did student radio at the UEA and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very similar path, and they've had the passion for a very long time. So it's the same with aviation for a lot of people. And that was me, probably I was 6 or 7. And that's my uncle, actually, who was in the Navy, Royal Navy, as a Harrier on the Engineer. And he used to take me, he was the one that took that photo and took me to Duxford. And I think that's probably where I got most of the interest from. I actually used to really like trains and lorries and buses and things like that.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I've gone away from that a bit now. So it's gone a lot more into aviation, particularly from that point. So that's where it started. So to start off the journey, a terrible photo. I don't think that's all
you
I
gave it to me, don't you?
Yeah, I know. It's, just the mirror and everything.
So just describe it to us, obviously, because the majority of people who are listening to this. So this is it a cadet uniform?
Yeah, so it's from the Air Cadets. So if anyone has someone they know that wants to get into aviation, it's a great way to start. You can join from when you're 13, I believe, and you get a number of opportunities flying. Obviously, a main one. I think that's reduced quite a lot now, but that's where I got my first flight. But just the skills that you develop and the confidence through doing camps away from home for the first time, shooting, teamwork built, snooping through a forest at 10 o'clock at night in the dark trying to find someone else.
As you do.
As you do. And yes, it's a great way to get started. So I started off in the Cadets, I think when I was about 13, 14, and I stayed there for a number of years. I actually left, which you'll see on the next slide. I actually left for that to start gliding. I didn't have time to do that.
Gliding is a place where a lot of people start, actually.
Yeah, it's a great way to get started. Obviously, unless you go on to do what's known as your badges, bronze and silver badges, which is cross-country flying, you can't actually count the hours towards your commercial license. So it's really good to build your stick and rudder skills that I think are really fundamental to being a good pilot at the start and understanding how to fly well. So gliding really does help that, and decision making skills as well. So that's actually my mum on the other slide there in the glider, who used to take me, thank you very much mum if you ever listen, to the gliding site, and it's over near Stowmarket, so it's a fair trek. So it's about an hour from where I live for people that aren't local, and that's where I started. So I then actually did my first flight in a microlight over at Beccles, which you might recognise there, and that was when I was
Carlos is nodding
16 years old. So actually back to front the slides, if you go to the next slide, when I was gliding I actually applied to a scholarship, and that was the message that I got.
It's all gone mad. Sorry, carry on.
So if you go back to the previous slide, if you can. I applied for a gliding scholarship and was unsuccessful, and that was when I was gliding there. So that wasn't great news. So that was a shame. So I thought, right, what can I do? Because I sort of felt sorry for myself for a few days and thought, right, what can I do to push forward? So obviously I feel like, is it Chris Whitty?
Yeah,
from
that's
Corona?
it. Yeah.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Absolutely. I've always wanted to do this. Sorry,
yes,
I'm very
yeah.
excited.
I'm rubbing my hands now. Yes. So yeah, it was, I got the email to say that I was unsuccessful. So and then you can actually go back a slide to the microlight. I thought, right, what can I do to get into aviation now? I need to do it on my own. And so what I did is I started in the microlight school, and at the time I was working at a local pub, which you can go to on the next slide, please. Yeah. And I was working at a local seaside pub, there you can see, and I used to get paid £3.50 an hour.
Oh, steady.
When I started.
Wow.
So I was making a lot of money.
Yeah,
but obviously, I think back then flying lessons were, I don't know, about £150 per hour. So it would take me, about 40... What's that, about 50 hours?
50 hours to earn one flight.
Yeah, about 50 hours to do one flight. So, yeah, it'd probably take me a month or two to get one flight. But I kept doing that for a year or two. I think it was just over a year. And sadly, Beccles Airport closed for training. So I was hit with a bit of a brick wall. I couldn't drive. I didn't have much money because I hadn't getting paid too much. And then I had nowhere to train. But fear not. Yeah. I was very lucky and applied for a PPL scholarship this time instead of the gliding one.
Yeah.
And if you go to the next slide, I was very lucky to receive a scholarship from the Honourable Company of Air Pilots, along with 8 others, and that allowed me to get the funding to complete a PPL, which was very lucky. So, yeah, I was quite.
So where did you do your training from? So obviously not at Beccles, but so where did you go after that?
Yeah, so there's a place called Crowfield, which is near Waddersham Air Base, near Mildenhall as well.
And is that part of the scheme? Is that what the...
so you choose where you want to fly, and they'll do their checks on the airfield to make sure that it's not too expensive and suitable for your training. And luckily for me, I was able to go there and complete it in the Robin 200 aircraft, which is very nice. But yeah, I think at that point it was quite difficult because you think you apply for this scholarship, you give it your everything, and then you don't get it. And I thought, right, we'll give it our best shot. I started doing quite a few different bits and bobs in that year. I started work, and I actually started writing a book to try and help other people get into aviation. And I just tried to show the selection panel that, you know, I've had this bug for a very, very long time. I want to make it happen, and those bits within that year period.
Not just a whim, essentially.
Yeah, not just a whim. Yeah, I just wanted to show them that, you know, this isn't a one. And I'm actually very lucky to be on the selection panel for the scholarship from the Honourable Company of Air Pilots. So each year I get to help review the applications.
Nice.
One thing that does stick out to you is when you see someone that's applied for the second year running, you think, oh yeah, this guy really wants it. So it does tick that box. So it's always worth reapplying if you see that, because it makes a big difference.
Now I know Armando's got quite a few questions to ask, but we'll take one from the chat room. Actually, Ben, before we move on, this one I'll pop up on the screen there. This one's from the Airstig, and he's asking, did you seek out any mentors, and did you find the support you needed?
Yeah, it's a really good question actually. So there was a few people in my village, one of which was a group captain in the RAF at Bentwaters. Which some of you may know, an ex-American Air Force base, and he gave me some guidance on how I could sell myself effectively for the scholarship and what type of things to do. I think the biggest thing, aside from that, and also a very kind chap called James who used to run quite a few businesses, he sort of helped me with my CV and things like that. But the biggest thing about getting into aviation is to see people that had also followed this modular route, in the sense that, you know, you're funding it yourself, you're working and paying for yourself. And, you know, my story's not unique. There's a lot of people that do the same path that I've followed, but it doesn't seem to reach the press as much. People aren't aware that you can do it as much as the 100. I think there's a program, the EasyJet series that you might have seen. They're like, oh yeah, you have to do 100 grand bank of mum and dad and things, and there are other routes to it. So I think the biggest thing for me is seeing things like this now, and YouTube videos and blogs from other people that had followed the modular path to say, look, if you don't have rich parents, or if you aren't able to fund it right now through remortgaging the house or something like that, you can still do it. So, I think that was the biggest thing. The advice online now, particularly through COVID and, sorry, you don't like that word, but through...
No, we're right with COVID. It's all right.
through recent years where things have got...
Brexit, that's the word we don't like.
Through Brexit as well. But the advice online is fantastic. But in terms of mentors, there's some fantastic YouTubers out there that give some great support. Plain Old Ben, he's a great chap to watch, and there's others as well if you look on there. So yeah, that's probably the best. But yeah, in summary, there's some great people in the village that have helped me. My family, of course, and then also people that are in aviation right now. You can find online as well. So there's a massive
Armando,
help.
over to you.
What a great journey, and it is nice to hear, because we do talk a lot about on the show how the financials are such a barrier, and I do have a few questions. So the Air Cadets, we've just interviewed so many people that have had these amazing aviation careers that got their starts in the Air Cadets. What were some of the lessons that you learned in the Air Cadets? How did it prepare you for your current chapter? And what lifelong lessons do you think that you'll always keep from the Air Cadets?
I think the biggest thing that stood out to me at the start was having the level of confidence to make your own decisions. Was something that you've never really done before at 13, 14, and I think the cadets put you in the situations where you have to make decisions. And obviously for being in command of an aircraft, particularly light aircraft where you're the only pilot, and particularly going into corporate aviation where you might be the only pilot there, and as a captain you have to make these decisions, and you have to make them fairly quickly in certain situations. And so I think having that early on, being faced with situations, and they're realistic, the teachers in the cadets are there, they've got military experience, and this is proper stuff. It's not willy, if you get upset and you they just leave you to it. You got to get on with it. So I think just having that hard sort of start where everything's been wrapped in cotton wool before that, and then suddenly you're put there where you can't run away.
Hello,
and hide.
real world.
Yeah,
Hello.
exactly that. And that hit me quite hard actually on some of the camps. It's like, wow, this is serious, and you're fairly young at the time. So I think that's a great start. I think the other thing as well was the teamwork skills. Because again, you might have played football as part of a team, but and done other sports.
Soccer, sorry.
Yeah, soccer. Soccer. You might have done things like that, and netball and things like that. But obviously, within that, they're trying to teach you how to be good at the particular sport and not actually the teamwork elements.
Yeah.
And so a big part of aviation is crew resource management, CRM, and that's where the teamwork skills really come into it. And in the cadets, they're teaching you how to work as a team.
Yeah.
And rather than the end goal, because if you can work as a team well, then naturally you'll get to whatever you're trying to work towards better. So you've got the teamwork skills, you've got the confidence, and then the last one I'd say is just a bit of self-discipline with the uniform and things like that. Being able to iron well and present yourself well, and you get marked on that each time you go. So there's so many other skills that I haven't even touched on there, but I think those three things stuck out to me.
What's kind of funny is John Jester, who is in the chat room, was one of my air cadet mentors when I was an air cadet or Civil Air Patrol here in the States. And that did continue on. Even when I was an airline pilot, I would still press my uniforms. I would present the most professional image and use shirt stays, things like that. Always ironing, fresh shirt before each day. So those skills do stay with you. Now, you talked about all your courses that you went through, the instrument, the commercial, the MCC, the upset recovery. Which one of those courses was your favorite, and which one was the most challenging?
So I've got a few pictures which Matt can run through, which sort of shows that. So you can start on that. Next slide, please.
Okay.
But I think,
Great.
I think the various courses all taught you different things. I think that's the aim of them, really. The instrument rating, I was worried about most because it's a big jump up. So if you go to a few slides time, so that's a night rating. So that wasn't too bad. It's actually
how did that compare, by the way? I mean, going from like flying like day flying and stuff to then doing like your first night flights. I mean, that must have been quite challenging.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you actually think would be like that, but I don't know if Armando agrees with me, but it's actually not that much different, apart from because your reference points when you're landing, things like that, are still using the same method, but you're using the lights instead. There's a few variations of it, but yeah, it's easy as well. You can see other aircraft, so, especially around here where you haven't got flag following, where you got to watch out for your own collision avoidance. That helps, but yeah, I didn't find it too much of a jump, to be honest. I think it was all fairly natural. Navigation and things are a little bit more tricky because there's less features that you can distinguish between.
Right.
But actually taking off and landing, things like that, you're using the same skills that you've used throughout your training. So that wasn't too bad.
And I suppose flight, especially in these aircraft in particular, are much lower, obviously. You're not sort of in cloud base or anything particularly.
No, so it's VFR only at night. At that stage with your night rating, you're using the instruments a little bit, but most of it's looking outside, so you're using the visual references, and there's a number of things that you practice as part of the night rating, like if you have an electrical failure, but you've got your head torch with the light, so you can see and things like that.
So you can see your instruments.
Yeah. But I was really surprised. And my instructor was the instructor that I actually started flying without a Beckles, Stuart O'Neill, who you might know. So
we know Stuart.
Yeah, well, you all know Stuart, yeah, because you eat at his restaurant, don't you? But yeah, Stuart, he took me through the night rating course, so it was really good. But back to the original question, I think the various courses all taught you different things. I think the instrument rating was the biggest jump up, because at that stage you've just got your PPL, and you've not really been exposed to just how quick things come at you, especially when you're flying the faster aircraft. The Robin that I'd fly before cruise at about 70 to 80 knots at times, whereas the DA-42 you can be up to 150 knots, so you double the speed, so you've got to think twice as quick, and then you've also got to be ahead of the aircraft. You're flying single crew, you're looking at the approach plates, you're looking at all the minimas, you're liaising with air traffic control that might put you in a hold that you're not expecting, and things like that, so things come at you thick and fast. So I think that transition was probably what makes you closer to a professional pilot, being able to deal with just the volume and the pace of the operation. The instrument rating was you have to be precise as well, on your instrument rating test. I think it's stricter in the UK. I might be wrong, but you're only allowed to go half a dot on the glide slope out, or half a dot on the localizer as well. I think it's a little bit more, a bit less.
Armando may know the answer to that, because you've flown both here and there.
I think a lot of the standards are more strict over there in EASA and UK. Yeah,
so it varies between countries, but even so, to do that after a fairly short training course is quite demanding, particularly when you're flying into international airports. So I did my IR test into Glasgow. And on that you've got British Airways coming up your chuff, so you've got to keep your speed up, and you've got EasyJets waiting to go with obviously 150 passengers sat there waiting for you to do your stuff. So, and then obviously once you've done your approach, the examiner fails an engine on you, so you've got a single engine, you've got to work out your route back. So there's a lot coming at you thick and fast, but it's really, really surprising how the 55-hour course at the start, you think, right, how the hell am I going to do this? And by the end of it, you become really quite proficient with it. So, and that just goes to show how good the training is in aviation, which is probably one of the best industries in the world for training people, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's gonna stay largely the same. The airplanes will get bigger. The bigger they are, the easier they are to fly, but the more complicated their systems are. But all of your check rides from here on out will kind of be about the same. It'll be, you will get one failure, and then that compounds to a second failure, and next thing you know, you end up flying a single engine, hand flown ILS approach or something like that. But there's not. You've already done a huge bulk of it. There's not a lot that they can really start throwing at you.
Yeah.
It just the speeds are a little bit different, the weights are a little bit different. But there is one question in the chat room, which is, were there any particular areas that you sort of got hung up on, or kind of you found more difficult than you were expecting? Because, you know, failure is part of this aviation business, right?
Yeah, I think I'll be quite honest. Fairly early on in the it's the multi-engine training. I was struggling quite a lot with the rudder control. It was actually quite a different system on the DA42, so just trying to get used to that was quite a challenge. And I think what compounded that is my course mate. He was finding it a lot easier. So you've got that impact, and you see it in F1 a lot, where one teammate's doing a lot before, and it really does affect another part of your training. You think.
I mean, you mentioned that Richard Adams has got a question saying, did you get stuck on any elements for a brief period, e.g. landings or anything? Yeah,
so just rudder control in the DA42, I managed to get in the hang of it fairly quickly after the multi-engine piston rating, which was for the instrument rating. And then, you know, you'll have a few flights where you're with your course mate and he does a few things wrong, and you manage to do it right, and it boosts your confidence. So having a training partner does help, but obviously when you're struggling a bit more at certain things, it hurts. You know, you see yourself struggling. But I think rudder control on the multi-engine aircraft was the biggest thing initially. I think then it was just the pace of it, really, just getting ahead of the aircraft, because when you're flying IFR, you've got your hood on, so you can't look outside, you're only looking at the instruments. And it gets quite tiring when you're looking at the instruments for over 2 hours. You know, you're constantly doing what's known as a selective radial scan, where you're checking your attitude, your speed, your altitude. You got your fuel flow as well, so you need to make sure that your fuel's okay. You're liaising with air traffic control, so there's a lot going on. And as part of your instrument rating, it's probably some of the most demanding flying that you'll do in that nature, because you are single crew and you're doing the procedures back to back.
Indeed. So then Dirk's asking a question. Besides being interested in aviation, do you think it needs special talents to follow the path that you did, or is it like almost anyone could do it? Could I do it?
Yeah, I think you could. I think that that's not just me saying that. I think that there's a big thing, particularly.
I disagree. I'm just putting that out there. But anyway.
No. I think it's one of those things where you're in school, you know, to be a pilot, you've got to be this maths genius.
But I mean, I remember you being obsessed, because obviously our paths crossed in my previous life, and I think we'd gone down to, I want to say, Guildford or somewhere like that.
Yeah, it's down in Surrey.
That's right. And Chris, who was the guy who was in charge there at the time, sort of introduced you to me because he knew that I did this. Yeah. And the conversation that we had over dinner was mind-blowing, to say the least. And it was, I mean, you literally do flights just because not even flying. I mean, you'd be, even as a passenger, you got as much enjoyment just being in the air. Yeah. And that's the one thing that I don't have, that, you know, I go to great lengths to not get into an aircraft. I mean, do you think that helps? There's got to be there's so much work involved in learning how to fly and to do what you do, and to do what Armando is now sort of like literally living the dream, really. Although obviously Armando's journey sort of started through military. I mean, did that ever pop into your head as an option?
Yeah, I think it was one of those that people tell you to follow a lot, because they give you the free training, they give you very good training, and also it's cool to be a Top Gun ace, isn't it? Yeah. So that's one of those things that people always point out to you, but it wasn't an option for me because I had asthma before. So,
I see.
And that's another thing. There's lots of medical things that you might have that you might think, oh, I can't get into aviation or something like that. But if you go for your medical, Class 1 medical, there'll be a number of tests that they can do, and they'll refer you to specialists that are able to identify certain things that you can get around, and you can campaign against it. So colour blindness is something in Australia that you can, or New Zealand, that you can fly with, but you can't fly in any other place in the world. and they pioneered that because they've shown that it doesn't affect your ability in certain situations. There's also a chap that flies for Loganair, which was the first pilot to fly with HIV as well. So there's all these different things that you
barriers being broken, literally.
Yeah, barriers being broken that you can get into, but also educational. I think if you've got the passion to do it, there's a lot of people that are known, and there's some pictures there that you might want to show actually of my time doing the 14 ATPL exams, and there's a number of people, which is your air transport pilot license exams, of which you need to do 14. And I included
the whiz
picture.
wheel.
Yeah, you got the whiz wheel.
Yay, the whiz wheel.
And the sunset with my iPad there.
Yeah.
Just to try and make it look a bit more glamorous.
Make it look a little more, absolutely. But essentially, you're just studying charts. That's
so it's 14 exams you had to do, and that took a year and a half, and you're obviously doing full-time work at the same time, so you're getting up at 6, 7, going to work for the day, getting back at, 5 or 6, having tea, and then studying up until 11, and just doing that every day for a year and a half. But if you've got it never feels, and I've actually got a friend doing it at the moment, and he said, strangely, I kind of enjoy it because it feels like I'm taking the next step. So the answer to the question is that there was people at the course that really didn't do well in their exams at school, and they've gone on to be fantastic pilots. So don't let educational barriers stop you as such, even if I don't even think having GCSEs and things are a requirement for certain things. No, I haven't touched the
but
whiz
you've
wheel
never
since.
touched your whiz wheel since.
No, I have
is
not
the question,
touched.
Richard.
No, I
So
haven't.
let's just work through a few more. I know there's just a few pictures left in
I've got a few.
in the thing. So just talk us through the story of here. What's this?
So that was actually camping at Cromer, which is a lovely place on the Norfolk coast here in East Anglia, and that was as part of the hour building. So that's another great thing. If you haven't got the money to go to an integrated school and you're funding it yourself, as I did through the modular approach, so you're working full time and then you're using your money to pay for each stage. That's what I did there. And you get a few additional benefits from that. So you're hiring out your own plane, so you can sort of make your own plan. So as part of that, with a few guys from the local club, we decided to go camping, where we fly in, get your tent out the back of the aircraft, and
away you go.
Which I guess probably Armando in America.
He's done quite a lot of it. Absolutely. Yeah. So this, we'll just take a quick look at this one now. This looks a little bit more sexy.
Absolutely.
Tell me what this is.
So that's a DA-42. It's actually my friend in there, Will, who completed the training at the same time. I couldn't find a picture, and I knew he wouldn't get me for copyright, so that's why he got him.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that's the DA-42. So that's what you do your instrument rating on the multi-engine training.
Right.
It's quite a modern aircraft.
Yeah.
Some people say.
So is that a glass cockpit?
It is a glass cockpit. Yeah, and it's got a full FADEC system, which means that it manages your fuel flow and mixture control and things like that. So you've got less levers and your RPM and things like that. So in traditional aircraft like that, you'd have your prop levers and your mixture levers, which give you a bit more control, some would argue. Whereas in that, it controls everything. But the downside is if the ECU batteries fail, you've only got half an hour until the engines just quit on you. So
right, okay, that's not ideal. That's not ideal.
Nope.
Now the picture that you've got behind you, just tell me what describe this to me.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
So that's going over Oban. So I did my training up in Scotland. Flying into airports like Aberdeen and Glasgow. I was based out of Perth Airport, so
nice.
That was a fantastic experience. The landscape was great, and the weather and the terrain gives you a really good opportunity to refine your skills. It is diesel, yeah. I think there's some in America that are actually Lycoming engines, and they've got the extra levers, but it's quite rare to see those. But they're diesel, so you can use Jet A1, which is obviously a lot cheaper. But that was up over Oban. I keep using the wrong hand.
Yeah,
that was up in Oban, so that was going over there, and that was as part of the training. It was a 2-hour flight. We flew from Perth up to Aberdeen, then across to Inverness, then down the Great Glen or whatever they call it, down Loch Ness, and then down to Perth again. So that was a lovely flight.
So we'll just so the final thing we'll end on with this is, before we sort of ask what's next.
Oh yeah.
Now there's a little video here that you also included, which I'm gonna run as well. So just talk us through this. This is what is this flight here going on?
So this is the upset recovery training. It's nowhere near as exciting as some people do aerobatics, but it gives you an idea of some things that you do. Basically, the course teaches you, if you find yourself in an unusual attitude, that I think the definition is outside of what.
Oh dear, I feel. Oh no, oh no, I couldn't do.
I love the registration of the aircraft. Golf, Sierra, Papa, Uniform November.
Geese fun, yeah. No, it's a good one. That they thought about that hard, I think.
Yeah.
But the idea of that training is that if you find the aircraft outside of what you want it to do, so if you want it to go into a climb and it's in a descent, or if it's in a stall or something like that, then how do you recover from that situation? And the biggest role of that becoming mandatory training was Air France 447, and that was when they obviously stalled over the Atlantic into the sea, which is very sad. But there's been a lot of learnings from that instant to carry forward into training for us guys, to not allow ourselves to get into that situation.
So we'll move on to how the journey sort of like has progressed so far. So now this I remember seeing very, very recently on your social media. Yeah.
So that's the end, and I think it's hard because you look at them and go, oh yeah, you're at the end, which is good. Yeah. But for me, I think the biggest part, what I would say, is throughout your flight training, you just really need to enjoy the journey, because I'm here now and I think, oh, well, cool. Yeah, what next?
I've done that. What next?
Yeah. So, and it's not to say that you don't, you take it for granted, because you absolutely don't. But it's more the fact that I always thought, I just want to get the license. But you look back, and some of the times when you're doing your flight training are the best moments of your life. So I look back for that fond memories. So that was when I passed the commercial pilot's license test, which was really good. It was quite an eventful test, but I won't go into that now. It's one for the restaurant after.
Okay, right, fair enough. Yes, never say anything that you don't want the ATSB to hear.
Well, no, it's not that. Essentially, I needed to land at an airfield which was hosting the British Open for the golf. Which meant they had about 80 business jet movements which meant that
finding a slot rather challenging then.
So my final approach after being asked to maintain maximum speed was interesting, but we made it. So that's good fun. But that last picture you had up on the screen, that was the 737 sim. So that's where you do your multi-crew training. So
was that a full sim or was it one of the fixed base ones?
Yeah, so it's fixed base, but it was they can actually do part
They're
of the type rating on it.
Realistic, aren't they?
Yeah.
Almost same as one we had for the 200.
It was, so the 200 and stuff. And the one thing I remember from that, although I didn't actually have a go of the controls and stuff, because I have no interest in it whatsoever. But even though I'm just watching the screens, Carlos is laughing. Even though I was watching the screens, I still felt my knees go as you started to pull it. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah. It's amazing what the mind can do to trick you into doing it, because it was a fixed base. There was no moving parts. It just honestly, it's amazing. So that's where you're at the moment, isn't it? So you've done 40 hours in the sim.
Yeah, so 40 hours in that. So now the next stage is I've got everything that I need to apply for my first role as a commercial pilot, which is the hardest part, to get your first job. Once you've got experience, it's a lot easier. But it's exciting, as I said before. I think that a lot of people always, and it's the same if you're trying to become a top basketball player or the best athlete or whatever it is, or get into radio. Once you've made it on to say Radio 1, is
I'm too old for that, dear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, well, never say never. Yeah, I was going to mention.
They're now getting rid of all the people who are my age.
I'll mention Simon Mayo instead. Then
absolutely.
He actually lives in the village, so it's
he does. Him and Joe Wiley.
Yeah. So his journey, I looked at. I used to listen to him quite a bit, but it's the same. They always think, I'll go through hospital radio. I'll get onto Radio 1. Once I get there, I'll be happy. But it's actually the process of getting there that's the exciting part. So. Yeah, I do obviously want to get my first role in aviation, but I think now the sort of hunt to get that is the exciting bit.
So what's happening now? What's the journey for you now? Because obviously, so you've done that, and it's looking for the job. So is that literally it now?
Oh, sorry, made me jump.
Is it? Sorry, we're having a couple of technical problems in the studio here. That is the next step? Is it now? It's like literally looking for taking those hours, if you like, somewhere else to build on them, essentially.
Yeah, so it's getting your first role as a first officer or equivalent. There's other things that you can do, such as parachute jumping and things like that.
Oh, okay, yes. Now you're being silly.
Oh yeah. A lot of those single pilot operations need more hours, so a lot of people tend to be instructors. It's just more of a common path in America. But the way the industry is at the moment, you just have to remain fairly dynamic. So my plan is to apply for those roles whilst they're open. If I'm unsuccessful after a period of time, I'll go and get my flight instructor's certificate, which I've always planned to do. I'll do it regardless, but go and get that. get some hours instructing, and then use that to be more experienced to get the first role. So you've just got to sort of move with the industry. It's quite good at the moment, so to be low hour, as I am, fresh out of flight school, and get a job in an airline's not uncommon. So we'll go for that first, and then see where it takes us. But yeah, it's a journey that always continues, and you never stop learning. You never stop trying to get to the next stage, dare I say, with once you're in an airline, once you're a captain, you might want to be a training captain, a training instructor, and things like that. So yeah, the progression in aviation is fantastic. You never stop learning, and you never stop wanting to progress to the next stage.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next part. We've got a little interview that we're going to do, guys. If you've got any more questions for Ben, if you want to whiz them in as quickly as you can.
Yes.
But Carlos, do you want to introduce what we're going to share with the lovely audience next?
Yes, so we've got part 2 of the interview that I did with Patrick, Elliott and Linda Walker over at the Seething Flying at the start of July. And if you remember, the couple took their long EZ around the world, but in order to ship it to various parts of the world, the aircraft had to be taken apart. I talked to them about the challenges of doing this and the logistics that were involved. That must be quite a task, taking this aircraft apart into pieces to be able to ship. I mean, it must take a while.
It's an interesting exercise. We were really fortunate that we had got in contact with a facilitator in Taiwan who was an extremely helpful gentleman, and he arranged for us to be hosted by AirAsia Company Limited in Taiwan, and we were given an office, an engineer to help us, all the facilities. We obviously paid for it, but all the facilities to enable us to take the aeroplane apart. I mean, within maybe 2 or 3 hours of landing, the fuel was drained out, the oil was drained out of the engine. We'd started taking everything that we could out of it, and they provided a container. We organised the ship that it was going to travel on, but they really helped us. So it made the job a lot easier. But interestingly, this aeroplane will go in a standard size container, but you have to put it like this to get these bits through the door.
I mean, there are only 2 bolts holding the wings on.
Three on
bolts. 3 bolts holding each wing on. So it's relatively easy from that point of view.
You can imagine building the aeroplane, the wings were on and off quite frequently, and the canard comes off. It's only 2 bolts for the canard, so apart from the control linkages, it's a fairly simple aeroplane, and it wasn't that difficult to take apart. I think we did it in about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And packed it up, said goodbye to it, and eventually we saw it arrive in Vancouver and put it back together again, and then, as Linda said, carried on.
You must have a huge garage at home to be able to build this.
Linda will tell you.
No, it's a standard size garage.
Single car garage.
And we had a piece of ground between the garage and the front door. So we ended up by extending that and made it L-shaped. So you had...
You could put the nose in one direction and the wing on that way, or the nose in that direction and that wing on, and that's how it was built.
Yeah.
So start from scratch. How easy, if someone watching this was like, I really want to build one of these, is it just a case of going to a supplier and buying all the various different parts that you need? Is there like an outlet to buy part? Is it an easy process?
It's a learning process. It's a real educational project, and I think I would say anybody could build one. You just have to do your research. The powers of the internet now make it a lot easier. It's basically, its construction is a big sailboard, so it's made out of a foam core covered in fiberglass and resin, and the mechanical bits you need, you can either make or get made for you. There are companies that still do it, and the gear legs, the main fiberglass gear legs can be pre-made, and there was a gentleman who used to blow the canopies. You can get these, it can be made fairly straightforwardly, as long as you follow the plans from page 1 to page whatever it is.
Page a million. Engine-wise, what's powering this?
We have an engine out of a PA28 161. It's a Piper Warrior 2 engine. It's a Lycoming 0320 D3G, and we made a change after our first trip to make it a fuel-injected engine so that we didn't have carburetor icing issues, because we've been over Greenland a couple of times, and just in case.
Yes.
Greenland, honestly,
Yes.
the sights there must have been brilliant. Talking about that, out of all the countries that you've obviously flown into a lot of countries, I have to ask, what was probably the country that stood out as being either the most friendly or the most stunning, scenery-wise?
Each country has its own merits. It's so difficult to just pick one. I think Thailand was the country that tried to reduce the charges to the least that they could manage. They came up with some amazing figure, and then they said, but you're only a certain weight, you only fly VFR, because the visual flight rules only, we can't do IFR. In that case, that makes it down to a quarter of what they charged. But they were the only country who actually physically reduced the charges. Argentina, surprisingly, was one of the very few countries that didn't charge us at all. We never had a bill from them for overflying, landing. We had nothing from them at all. And you were quite concerned about going into Argentina.
Obviously,
because of the political issues.
40 years ago, the Falklands Islands issue, and I was concerned that there would still be repercussions over that for us going in. Yet they were as friendly as any other country. And in fact, when we arrived in Ushuaia, which is the first port in Argentina we went to, they were apologetic because they kept us waiting for the quarantine
doctor.
And they couldn't have been nicer, and all the way through Argentina we found people who were helpful.
I mean, going back to the sites, I mean, obviously Greenland is pretty amazing, going over the ice cap. We went round Greenland the first time and over the ice cap the second time. Chile is absolutely incredible with all of the fields and the glaciers and the lakes. Australia was amazing because they just had rains, so where all the rivers were, it looked like dragon's tails. So you had all the green along the side of the riverbanks, so you had all these wonderful shapes. And I mean, each country definitely has something of merit.
And I'm guessing you get some quite good pictures from...
Yes, not too bad. Not too bad. It's not too easy to see down. I can see across, but if there's something that really needs a good photo, Patrick just leans the plane a little bit, just cants it over slightly.
I'm not allowed to go too far.
No, you only can go just a little bit.
So what about the total different contrast? What country was like the most difficult to navigate or get into?
India was the worst bureaucratic, but we taught them. So, but India was an absolute nightmare.
India is a nightmare.
Yeah. The people are fine, but
flying actually wasn't an issue as much as I thought it might be. Weather-wise, you kind of think crossing the intertropical convergence zone, kind of when we did the first trip, it was down through kind of Singapore area. The weather was a bit iffy. We did get delayed in Thailand. We did a turn back one day because we just couldn't get through a line of storms. We were trying to get to Koh Samui, the island of Koh Samui, and just the weather was dreadful. But in South America, it wasn't half as bad as I was expecting. And in fact, we really didn't have any weather issues at all.
No.
Low cloud in French Guiana as we were heading towards Kourou, where the space rockets go off, and They required us to be something like 1,000 feet above the ground, 40 miles out from the airfields, which, considering we were skimming the forest canopy, was fine, but it was raining, the weather wasn't great. But, really the weather has not been an issue all the way around. But we're fair weather flyers. We went to Greenland on the second trip, going westbound. And we got stuck in Greenland for 17 nights. No, nobody stays in Greenland for that long unless they're going to become a resident. And in fact, they did offer. It is very expensive. We were unfortunate the weather where we were at Sonderstrom, Fjord, Kangerlussuaq. The weather was great. It was 25 degrees. It was clear blue skies, high pressure area. It was just gorgeous. We were trying to go across the Davis. Is it the Davis Strait? To Frobisher Bay on Baffin Island in northern Canada, and the weather there was still icy. They had a low pressure area. The fog was there every day, and we just couldn't make the crossing. And it's only a 4-hour flight in this. But we couldn't make the crossing, and every day we'd go to the Met Office and we would say, "Are we going to go today?" And they said, "Probably unlikely, because you're either going to get icing across the water, which we didn't want to do, or you won't get to your destination." And then one morning they said, "Yeah, I think it might be on today." Right, we're off. Yeah. And we got there, and we got there fine.
Lost up bogeys 135, 50, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay, now undersea bogeys.
All right, guys, jumping right into the military segment. From the aviationist.com, this new AW249 attack helicopter flies for the first time. Now, this is from the Italian Armed Forces. This helicopter is supposed to replace the AH-129 Mangusta, currently in service with the Italian Army. The first prototype of this Leonardo AW249 next generation, everything's next generation. At what point do we just become the regular generation? So anyway, the next generation attack helicopter flew for the first time this last week at the company's plant in Verdiate. I looked that up. The helicopter formerly designated the 249 will replace that AW129. That's been in service since the 1990s with the Italian Armed Forces. So the helicopter flew in just its primer paint and the experimental serial number CSX 82069 on the fuselage, the tail boom. You can see some lines created by gray and red tape, probably some test points. Latter possibly be used to attach some strain sensors to the surface to monitor the stress on the airframe during the flight. As you can see, the helicopter has actually already been outfitted with the most important part, a 20 millimeter cannon sticking out the front, and a top light targeting system inherited from the AW129, the Mangusta. Leonardo's been working on this project since about 2017. There's currently one prototype, then 3 pre-serial production helicopters, and I think the current orders are for up to 48 helicopters. So obviously, as you can see from the pictures, looks a lot like an Apache. Very interesting. I think Leonardo and some of the U.S. manufacturers work fairly closely. I think even the U.S. Air Force has actually looked to Leonardo to produce some of the new combat search and rescue helicopters. But as you can imagine, these helicopters, while looking mean and rugged and having some lineage back to, I guess, 1960s and 70s styles, they're loaded up with sensors. They're cyber enabled. They're battle space enabled, where they can talk to a lot of different family of systems, mostly communication space. So pretty cool helicopter. It's very interesting to see the development over the last couple of years. Strangely enough, Ben was on the show in 2017. We've been tracking some of these projects. I came on the show in 2019, and it's kind of weird to see some of these projects actually come to fruition, that we've just been talking about over the past couple of years. Very interesting. But harking back to original platforms and a little bit of lineage, Carlos, you got the next story.
Yeah, we all love a bit of commercial when it mixes with military, and this one comes to us from Flight Global. And the Luftwaffe has taken the second modified A321LR under Project Pluto initiative. So Germany has received the second of 2 Airbus A321LRs to be operated by its Air Force, initially for troop or passenger transport missions. Bearing the military registration 15+11. Interesting maths. At the CFM International LEAP 1A powered jets have been specially modified by Lufthansa Technik. Handed over to the Luftwaffe on the 17th of August, the twin jet will be flown by the service's executive transport wing from its base in Cologne Bonn Airport. The sister aircraft, 1510, was received by the Air Force at a ceremony at the ILA Berlin Air Show back in June. Currently configured in a 136-seat layout, the 2 aircraft will over the next 12 months return to Lufthansa Technik for the addition of and qualification of a medevac interior. 3 different configurations will be available, offering the ability to transport up to 6 intensive care patients or 12 with less severe injuries. Preliminary work will enable installation of the medevac interior that's already been completed as part of the first phase of the project, says Lufthansa Technik, including configuration of the onboard oxygen system. The 2 A321LRs were ordered in July 2020, and Lufthansa Technik has modified them under the code name Project Pluto, which is in line with the company's policy of choosing the names of gods or planets for confidential work. It's nice to see a 321LR in a grey colour.
I think the chat room agrees. Isn't it kind of cool?
Yeah,
it's always cool to see, these commercial airplanes in tactical kit.
Yeah, Sturman and Jonathan Warner both enjoying that as well. So yeah, and Dirk is saying it looks really good, but it does look good. Can't be a bit of grey. I've got a bit hanging on the wall behind me here.
What? What?
Well, one of the things that I really like about this is it's always fun to see commercial aircraft in military roles. Airbus has a long history of it, right? So the A400, even the A330 has proven itself. I think the US again was looking at the A330, and we didn't cover it this week, but there's actually a story out there that they may be again looking at the A330 MRTT for U.S. Air Force use, because the KC-46 isn't working out so well. So I did not include that in the stories this week. But what I like about this is we all know that commercial aircraft are over-engineered, and they're much more capable than most commercial operators put them to use, or the public knows. But the militaries, will tend to really push the capabilities of the aircraft, and then that data ends up coming back into the commercial industry for parts performance, parts life, engine performance. I'll bet you like these guys are, the German Air Force is going to be flying them in tactical situations with night vision goggles, probably adding some heads up displays, and doing some unique missions. I think the pandemic really stressed the need for transport aircraft, specialized transport aircraft like this. Yeah, very cool. So can't wait to see this out on the ramp at Riyadh or Farnborough.
Indeed. That's it, I'm afraid, guys. That's where we've got to wrap things up, unfortunately.
Yes, we're going to take our guest out, Ben, for a little quick treat after the show. So we're going to have to finish the show and wrap up now.
And, Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, we're going to say a big thanks to Ben.
It's always a pleasure, and hopefully be back
we
soon.
Won't leave it another 5 or 6 or 7 years or whatever it is next time.
Well, if I come every week, I'll get free dinner every Friday. So
sure, that's how that works. Yeah, all right.
Free food Friday.
I know a radio station that does that. Anyway, moving on.
Big thanks to John for all the background work this week. Thanks to Armando for joining us this week. As always, hope to see you. I won't be here next week. I'm having a Friday off. I'm going away for the weekend. But the team will be back next Friday with you. Hopefully Neville will be back as well. So thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat room. Thanks to all the audio downloaders. Thank you very much. And everyone who's tuned in this evening, take care. And that is all we have time for this week for episode 424. Take care. See you next Friday.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you later.